Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Epic Heathen Podcast. It has been a long break, and we are resuming with a bit of a different episode. Actually, we have other two episodes recorded for Very Saket and Heavy Tattoo, and those will come, but this will be a bit shorter one, and it will be about a concert.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be about a concert, and it turned out, in my opinion, better. It turned out to be about Moonsorrow Live, as we spoke as well a lot about how they manage their sound and everything. So yeah, we were intending to make this a 20-minute conversation about the concert. It ended up a bit longer. We can consider it episode 1 of season 2, if you will, considering then that season 1 finished with the interview with Henry, and it was released already a year ago. So let's start season 2 with Moonsorrow Live, and then let's go back to the albums.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
It's a concert that happened very recently, and you can watch in full on YouTube. We'll leave a link somewhere. However, if you search Moonsorrow Helsinki 2023, you will find it very easily. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes approximately. It was a very long show, divided in 2 parts with a break in between, and it was full of rarities. Let's just list the set list so that everybody knows what we're talking about, and then we can go more slowly. So they opened with Tulkaapa Äijät, which, as most of you know, is a bonus track in the re-release of Sudenuni. It's a party song. The second one was Pakana Juhla, another party song, as this one is a lot more known. They played it with the final acoustic part at the end, which I think this is the 4th or 5th time they ever do it. Next was Aurinko Jaku, Kiven Kantaja, Suden Tunti, Toilion Järven Jälle. So these 4 are like more common. Then Aika, 1065 Aika. And the last of the first set was Kuolleiden maa. Then there was a 15-20 minute break. And the second set was Tulimyrsky, which was obviously already half of the set. Tulimyrsky in full, of course. Then Haaska. Then Mimisbrunn. And then Sankaritarina was the closer. Everything is recorded in video except for the second half of Mimisbrunn and Sankaritarina, because simply my phone ran out of storage, but I had a separate phone recording audio only. So on the YouTube video, the last part is only audio, but at least you can listen to it. There's 4 of us here today, of which 2 of us have been to the concert. The other 2 could not. But we are all going to comment on whatever is there to comment. So Aleksi is the one who was there. We met there. I am the other one, by the way. But yeah. So Aleksi, how are you? Long time no see in the podcast.
I'm doing reasonably all right. Been busy, let's put it that way. Preparing for a move to Helsinki area in a month. So going well in that regard.
Perfect. And we have another question for today. How many Moonsorrow concerts have you seen so far?
I think that was my 16th show.
16.
Wow.
16, yeah.
Okay, same as me then. Exactly same as me. Sasan, I see your sad face. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I have not been to 16. How am I doing? I'm okay. I'm good. I was planning on going to that show. I had a ticket to that show, but things got in the way and I could not go, which I have mixed feelings about, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But no, I have not been to 16. I think that would have been my 4th Moonsorrow show. Got into Moonsorrow in like 2006 or 7. So I don't know, 15 years.
Don't worry, Sasan, I'm at 3 as well. So
There we go. 3's a good number.
This is interesting. 2 16s and 2 3s.
Yeah.
Well, and the fourth team member today is Thomas, who has just spoken. How are you?
Fine. It's already very hot in France right now, and all the allergies are kicking in with pollen and stuff like that. So that's not a blast. I had not my ticket for the show, but I was very busy going to numerous festivals and gigs all across France, helping friends. I wish I could have joined you, but that would be for another day, I think. But we saw the 50th anniversary show from Wishbone Ash for the album Argus, so that was equally a blast, in my opinion.
Well then. Another person who was in the concert is Mikkel, but for some reason he's not here today. So whatever. He misses it.
What
Wouldn't
number
it be
show?
Sorry?
No, I was gonna ask what number show this was for Mikkel.
I think
think
it
he
was
said-
27th.
27.
Oh my
Yeah, he said 27.
I was just about to say that as well.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and his first was in 2014, if I'm mistaken. So he's been working fast.
I
Yeah,
haven't
and-
seen them once since 2014. Last time I saw
There you
them
go.
was actually, did they might have toured for, I don't know. I can't remember if they toured for Jumalta or not in the US.
I don't think so. Maybe mistaken,
Yeah.
but I don't think so.
Where do I get one of these gigs where you don't have to tour, you just play festivals whenever you feel like it?
They are going to Mexico later this year, so well, it's closer than Europe.
That's right next door.
There you go.
It's about as close as Helsinki, so
Is it really?
I'll have another. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I don't know how far.
I'm really sorry, Sasan. I just remembered I saw them as well in Paris a
Oh
couple of
my
times
god!
ago.
How
so
could you
I'm
do
at
this
4.
to me? All right, well, I'll have to catch up.
Have you seen the recording on YouTube?
I saw the set list, but I left my house about 10 days ago for a work trip, and I got home last night, went to bed, and woke up like 30 minutes ago. So I've been busy from about 10 days ago until now.
Okay, I see. And you, Thomas, you said you did, right?
Yeah, I watched almost the entire show in several parts, and that was great. While doing some shitty working stuff like Excel sheets and bills. But yeah, that was nice. I'm just a bit like, if I would have joined you, I would have been a bit disappointed because I'm really loving the time when they were playing Uto live.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my only like bad stuff to say. The set list is great, and they seem to have the same good energy as when I saw them in France a long time ago now, because it was in Bordeaux and Limoges. So I can't remember. I have to check the dates, but that was nice of you to take the time to record that also.
But you enjoyed it.
Was the set? I know they played 2 long shows. Was the set list the same in the first show?
Yes, exactly
Okay.
the same. What were your... So I think everybody here knew that this would be a special concert in some way. What were you guys expecting? I was expecting Tulimirsky, honestly.
Tulimirsky was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I expected it, but it was what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, not super. It wasn't super obvious, but either Tulimirsky or Tulenayetuma. I mean, it was clear that one of the long ones had to be. I mean, this would be the opportunity for it.
No, 100%. I think I would have wanted to hear Tulenayetuma more because I have heard Tulimirsky before. So would have been something new in that regard from the longer songs.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. And looking at the set list, what I think is really interesting is that this is like a Moonsorrow show for people at their 16th or 27th Moonsorrow show. You know, it's very
Agreed.
much like you are a massive Moonsorrow fan. You've been to a bunch of shows. You've heard, you know, Pimaya Jotunheim 1,000 times. Like, here's some stuff that you mostly haven't heard before. I mean, there's some songs that are classics, and I know they've been playing like Suden Tunti at like all of their shows since that album came out. I don't know why, but looking at it, it's kind of like, okay, that would have been a really fun and exciting show to be at, but I also haven't seen them play like Jotunheim in so long, and there's so many of like the classics I haven't heard them play that are a part of their regular set. You know, I'm glad that this isn't what their normal set looks like when they're like let's say next time I get to go see them, I'll be excited to hear some of the staples and some of the classics, and maybe a little bit more from the very Zaket Habitat era. But yeah, I thought it was really cool and really exciting that they are sort of all over the map and looking at their whole discography. And I think it's really exciting to think about like what they might be writing or starting to write or think about writing, given that they're sort of looking back on their whole discography right now and they don't seem to be in one particular mood, if that makes sense.
Well, to be fair, in most of their shows and tours, they always combine stuff from many albums. I don't think there's an album that they usually leave behind or anything. Songs, yes, but albums, I think they always play a bit from everything.
I think festival shows are one thing, but when they're touring, like in the US, they have like a 40-minute set. They usually try to do like 2 songs off the new album. That's already half the set.
Well, yes,
and I'd say usually, and I mean, the last time they did that was like 13 years ago. So who knows? But yeah, I'm used to seeing them play 4 songs a show, maybe 5. So they're a lot more limited in their ability to kind of do that.
That 4 or 5 songs is, I think, more or less the festival standard what they play. But also, I think I've seen all of the songs live except Tulkapa Äijät. So what I'm recalling now, like they've played these songs on club shows in Finland whenever they do. Like of course when Jumalten Aika released, they played the whole album, and there was the Verisaket tour as well. So yeah. And in fact, the 2014 show, which was Mikkel's first as well, and I actually got to know him from there as well. I met him there for the first time. I quickly picked up like the set list from there, and they did play like Pakanajuhla and Aika there, which was apparently the first time they played Aika in Finland live. Also Tuli Myrsky.
Yeah, what was the vibe at the show? Because it's kind of like their home, like as close as you get to their like home club. You know, they said that was where they played their second show. Seems like that's the sort of main like club stage in the city they live in. What was the sort of energy like from the band and from the crowd?
I mean, in general, like when we think about the venue, Tavastia, it's just a legendary venue in whole Finland. It's undeniable, like it's one of the most well-known venues in Finland. So, but also, yeah, to me, like, of course, home turf, like people were very excited because they don't have too many shows in Finland. And I think the show was quite quickly sold out as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it was loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw lots of foreigners as well. And because I suppose that people who are Moonsorrow followers knew what to expect, most of them. And so, yeah, I think there were good amount of nerds like us expecting to see what actually happened. So I don't think there were many casual, okay, Moonsorrow is playing. Probably there were some of those, but yeah, I think everybody was pretty much into it. And well, I was on the first row, well, first, second, then Aleksi gave me his place.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Where else?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not always on the first one, but yeah, this time I was second and then first. And obviously in the first row, everybody, no matter what concert it is, everybody's going to be excited and everything. So I cannot say how far back in the rows the big excitement went, but I can imagine that, it was a show for dedicated fans, and I would suppose that many of them were. Also, a lot of t-shirts were sold. I could see that the merch stand was pretty successful, even though they had only 2 designs. The one with the poster of the show with this Thor's hammer, whatever, that says "Death to False Folk Metal." It's not very often that you see a joke in a Moonsorrow t-shirt, and the Tuli Myrsky t-shirt.
I want to add one thing. So to think about, like, Thomas and Sasan probably don't have like any idea. So the venue, Tavastia, it holds 700 people. So it's not like a massive show, but
Yeah.
700, it's significant amount of people still.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like what in, say, US, like what the venue sizes usually are.
Yeah, 700 is big. I have a sense of what that will be equivalent to. It's hard for me to I can try to look it up, but I went to see Rotting Christ play a show in Manhattan a few months ago, and that was a pretty big venue. I think that was like pretty much, I haven't lived in New York for that long, but I expect like a big black metal tour. I think that's about as big as they would play, and that probably was something like 500-700 capacity. And yeah, that puts it in perspective, because I've mostly seen Moonsorrow in, like bars in San Francisco that have like 150 people capacity. So yeah, wow, that's a big crowd.
It definitely is. I think most venues are smaller. There are, of course, a couple bigger ones as well.
Was Nosturi bigger or smaller? I
can double check that quickly.
So it's not obviously bigger or obviously smaller, right?
I mean, Nosturi on quick research was 900 capacity, and they did have sold out shows there as well. So
I found the place that I saw that Rotting Christ tour with a few other black metal bands has a 500 person capacity. So yeah, 700 is, yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like metal shows, Finland, famously more popular, So what did you guys think of the set list? Like, not overall, I mean like each song.
Well, it was definitely a surprise to start with Tulka Paayat, because actually I would think of it more as an encore, as a very last one, as like a farewell,
like a bonus track.
Yeah, exactly. It is a bonus track, right? Not so much as a starter. The set is good. I understand that, you cannot please everybody. Yes, there are changes I would make and songs I would rather hear, but it's a very, very good set. I mean, zero complaints.
What was your favorite song of the set?
Well, Tuli Myrsky. I mean, I really wanted to hear it. And by the way, if I had to choose between Tuli Myrsky and Tule Nayetuma, I probably would have chosen Tuli Myrsky for one reason. I have several recordings of Tule Nayetuma, even though I haven't seen it myself, but I have recordings, several of them. So I know what it sounds like when they play it. But Tuulimyrsky, in 15 years, I couldn't find a freaking recording, just snippets. So I was, we say in Spanish that I had this thorn stuck in me, and I finally could take it out.
Aleksi, what about you? What was your...
I think it has to also be Tuulimyrsky, or in a way Kuolleiden maa as well. It's like Kuolleiden maa ended the first half and Tuulimyrsky began the second half. So it was in a way like very nice to have the little break there. So knowing kind of that as well, I think that affects it. But Kuolleiden maa is very like just incredible song personally, like especially with like what like when we go deeper into the show, like it's like all the visuals, like the lighting and just this, it fits it so well. Like I think the lighting was the best on those two songs that I just mentioned. But yeah, I think when, of course, since we were in the front, there is always the one issue. The sound is a little bit worse there. Like it's a bit unfortunate, like the first like 2-3 songs of the show, like the sound quality, like I couldn't hear vocals barely at all, but it got better as it went along.
Yeah, that's globally an issue everywhere. You know that the first one will be as bad as it can possibly be, considering the rest of the show. If you are too close to the stage, you lose some frequencies due to the orientations of the speakers, and you have a good view. I like that because I'm small, but I prefer being way more back to check all the frequencies. But yeah, that can be a pain in the ass, especially if you enjoy the show.
I mean, you hear the monitors like in the front, like what, like Phil
That
has
is-
there, like.
Yeah, that is what I was going to say. And actually, anyone who watches the YouTube video will notice that the bass is always there, very prominently, but the guitars, I mean, you have to listen for them. They can be heard, but you have to listen for them.
And that's because you were front and center?
Yeah, I was front and center, yeah. So, yeah, right in front of you. Like, if they used in-ear monitors, if they upgraded themselves a bit, then we wouldn't have that issue. But, well, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing, because Moonsorrow's live rig is obviously a little bit more like they have lots of instruments, they have a lot of stuff to juggle, but it's, as far as the technical, I mean, I think they're playing out of live amps, and I think they're just listening to stage monitors. Like, I've been playing a couple shows in New York, and it's pretty much the same setup, and it's just a very like classic. And sometimes you see bands, they have, like I saw on the Rotting Christ tour, and actually here Rotting Christ, I had to leave the show and go to another show, but I saw the opening bands. I can't remember. Wada opened, and the Garia, is that how you say that one with they're like Magua but with silk?
The Portuguese
from
band?
Portugal. Gairea.
Yeah. So I saw those two, and they are fully, in-ear monitors, and drums are all triggered, and the amps are coming out of, like, they're playing into a digital whatever, and that's like synthesizing the sound. And I don't know, I don't think that there's actual bad thing about that. I think that's fine. I think that's, like when you go see, like if I go see Megadeth, right? So like a huge touring band in the US in terms of metal, that's how they have their setup, and I think it sounds great. What I think is awkward is when people are playing smaller venues and you have this sound that doesn't really match the room at all. So when I saw like Uada and the Portuguese band that might have a name, it was weird because the instruments had reverb on them, and it kind of like the way the drums sounded and the way the guitar sounded, it sounded loud, but it wasn't as loud as it sounded. It sounded like a recording of something that was really loud, and you're listening to it at a lower volume. And it was a very weird experience being in that room, because even though they were playing it live, because of this weird quality in the sound, it didn't sound like it was coming out of the room you were in. It sounded like you were listening to it, listening to a recording. And I think one of the positives of Moonsorrow having the setup that they do is that, you know, it's always going to sound like it's really instruments coming out of real amps and the PA and all that stuff. But it's always, you're not going to have to worry about that weird effect where it doesn't really sound like the space you're in. But the downside is that you have all of the problems that gear was made to solve. Like, I can't hear the guitars.
But I don't understand. So I understand everything you say, but what is the thing that makes it sound as if it was far away? And so what is it? The in-ear monitors, or that's completely unrelated? Or
no, it's not the in-ear monitors. It's the effects that they put on the. So when you have a guitar, when you're playing guitar, right, there's a few different parts of the process that happen before your ears hear it, right? There is the amplifier that makes the guitar sound distorted. There's the speaker that blasts the sound out, and that kind of changes the quality of the sound a little bit. And then there is the room that you're in and how the sound bounces around in that room. So the technology for mimicking the amplifier part is perfect. I mean, people claim they can hear the difference. I don't believe it. I think we have that part figured out. I think the technology for the mimicking what a speaker sounds like as it's coming out of it is also really, really good. But imagine like you're seeing Slayer play in the 80s and they have a wall of Marshalls behind them, you know? You can mimic the way a guitar sounds when it's coming out of a wall of Marshalls, and you can hear it in your headphones, or you can hear it coming out of a speaker right in front of you, but it's not going to be the same volume as a wall of Marshalls. And so part of it is that like it sounds like 10 massive speakers, but it's not as loud as that, and so that's a little weird. And then the last thing is, you know, when you can add reverb to this to make it sound like you're in this big great hall, and they do because that's the way they record the album, right? They record it with reverb, and so when they're playing live, they're probably like, well, let's just use the same reverb. But when you're listening to the album, you're kind of in this fictional space that, like, when you like the beginning of Yasas Internet, like the dun dun ka, dun dun ka, like the way that snare sounds, like you imagine yourself being in a certain size space, and when the drums or the guitar or whatever has an echo that sounds like a different kind of space than the space you're actually in, it's a little strange. And when a massive band, like I saw Roger Waters play a massive stadium, when he's playing, like he needs all of that stuff to be digital, because otherwise it wouldn't sound like anything. And you want that level of control, and the digital setup isn't the problem exactly, but you wouldn't want to ideally set the settings exactly the same for a small club as like a festival show. And that's kind of the problem. Like it sounded like a festival show, but they were 15 feet in front of you. It was a 500 person indoor place. And I don't know, I think maybe part of Moonsorrow's liking of like, you know, the classic live setup without the new technology, maybe it's that they haven't upgraded, but I think there's also some benefit to it that it, you know, always sounds like they have a very stripped down like live sound. They don't use any pre-recorded stuff. And yeah, I think all that digital stuff kind of like blurs the line there in a way that I think they are trying to avoid. But yeah, then sometimes you can't hear the vocals instead of everything being perfect every time.
That is very funny because you just explained how shitty it is to mix a AAA game with several environments. It's okay. I have very good sounds. I have a very good reverb. Yeah, everything is shitty now. And so that was great. Applied to video games.
Oh, that makes, because like footsteps in a church hall shouldn't sound like footsteps in a courtyard outside, and you have to make that. Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't realize you're hearing a difference, but if that change doesn't happen, it's unsettling.
I was finding it funny, and for to make sure, like I do really agree with you. And on the contrary, if you use only like amps and traditional way of mixing, I was in Keep It True a couple of weeks ago. Very looking forward to see one of my favorite band, Pagan Altar, and they mixed it so badly. That was as shit as you can imagine.
Yeah,
that was like very bad. We knew all the songs, so that was kind of okay, but sometimes the argument of saying, okay, I'm old school and it's going to sound better is so false. If you don't know how to mix, you can mix anything you want. If you don't know how to mix it, it will sound as shit. And
yeah, the last show I played, my amp was dying, and sometimes it would be really quiet and be really loud, and the sound guy was trying to turn it up and down and compensate, and there's like recordings of it, and just most of it you can't hear anything. And I don't know, I think it's what I mean, it's the same with anything getting automated, right? Like I think the stuff becoming digital makes it really consistent, which even if it's not as good as the other stuff can be at its best, I think just the fact that it's consistent makes it. Well, I guess my question is like, okay, Moonsorrow doesn't want to play with backing tracks, or fake amps and stuff like that. Well, what do you guys think? I mean, Aleksi, I know you make music and you probably have strong opinions about this. Maybe you don't, but there's a lot of bands, I'm sure, even at big metal festivals that aren't, because all of the like hardcore or core or metalcore or whatever, all of these bands are using all of this in-ear monitors, fake setup, everything is perfect coming out of the box. They have backing tracks, even at a relatively small level. Like I play shows with bands that do that. Not every band, but it's a couple $1,000s of investment to make it happen, and a lot of bands make that happen. So would you be interested in hearing a Moonsorrow that had digital instruments but had like perfect mixing every time? What do you think about backing tracks? Would you be interested in hearing a proper choir of that sounds like 50 people instead of 5 guys on stage?
I think it also heavily depends on like the venue itself, like acoustics, whatever. Like on like say it's a festival, having those choirs probably wouldn't even like would sound well. I don't actually know, because if you compare like a festival to like a smaller venue, like the acoustic is of course completely different. And as to me, like club shows, they are much more intense. They are much more majestic in a way. Like it's more like tight sound, and if there are choirs, they usually sound more epic. So it's a bit of a tricky question, because it could work very well. Like it depends, of course, how much you use it. If everything is from backing track, then it's a bit pointless. But of course, some instruments, like traditional instruments, could be very well and the background a little bit. Wouldn't mind that.
In my case, I have just learned everything about this digital processing of the sound so before it comes out of the speakers. That is completely new to me. I didn't know it existed. And knowing Moonsorrow, I mean, it's obvious why they didn't use it. I mean, they have always been raw as it gets when it comes to playing live. They have whatever samples on Marcus's keyboard, and everything else is as it comes. I don't know if in-ear monitors would be a betrayal to that, because that's not really processing the sound in a different way. It's just instead of having it in front of you, have it inside of you and inside of your ears. And I would imagine that that you can even hear it better, probably. That you don't need to be right in front of them, etc. I would suppose. I don't know. I don't know either how uncomfortable they are if they block everything else, and that's uncomfortable. I have no idea. Concerning backing tracks, I'm super happy that two of my all-time favorite bands never use any backing tracks at all, Moonsorrow and Blind Guardian, even though both of them have lots of stuff going on in their albums. And this is something that even before I knew that there was a controversy about it or a debate about it, I already realized, like many, many years ago, when I was getting into metal music. And I remember that I watched a Rhapsody DVD. I think they were even Rhapsody still, no Fire, no, no nothing.
Yeah.
And I saw the DVD, and I mean, it was very obvious that, okay, there were 5 guys or 6 on stage, and there were lots of things which were clearly not there. I could hear a violin, I could hear this, I could hear that. And many of those, it disturbed me a bit. It's like, I don't need that. The song is good by itself. You are lots of people. The singer can sing, the guitarist can guitar, and the drummer can drum. So, and for me, the most absurd one was Lamento Heroico. I don't know if you are familiar with this Rhapsody song. It's like a ballad or a slow one, and the chorus is sung by Fabio Lione, the usual singer, plus some tenor. Il mio lamento eroico. Well, it's a famous song. In the album, you have both singers. And in the live version, you could hear Fabio Lione singing himself live, plus the backing track of the tenor. And that is so unnecessary to me in a concert. And I couldn't believe, why would anybody do this? There are other cases, for example, Arcona, which I also love, Arcona from Russia. They do use a lot of samples, and I also think they shouldn't. I would prefer they didn't.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
I said samples when I actually meant backing tracks. And actually I'm going to make this mistake again. So sorry about that. I mean backing tracks, not samples.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
However, I think they don't exaggerate as much. They make more use of what they have, and they don't have a keyboardist. So with a keyboard, you can do lots of things. Without a keyboard or a synthesizer, you're a lot more limited. So I understand. I would still prefer that they got a keyboardist in the band. So yeah, very happy that Moonsorrow don't use any samples. Because it also gives a different feel to the song, a different touch. For example, Sankaritarina. There is a keyboard solo somewhere in the studio version, which becomes, rather not really a solo, but a keyboard-led melody, which is played by Mitya on guitar. So you have the redistribution of things, which gives, I think, a different value to it. You have the same song, obviously, same melodies and same everything, but it's a different version of it adapted to the circumstances. And I think that's the best a band can do. So the opposite of this is what you just described, which is completely new to me. Like, make it sound like a huge stadium in a 40 people venue.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of music that people are making now that wouldn't be possible to play live using old equipment. It's interesting. You look back at history, and you think about like how metal has progressed. And you think, okay, well, first people like this amount of distortion, and then they like this amount of distortion, and then they like this amount of distortion, and then gradually things got more distorted. But when you look into sort of the history of the equipment that they used, you realize like it wasn't a choice that people had. When Black Sabbath was recording in the early days, that was as distorted and heavy as you could get the guitar to sound. And then later, like when Cannibal Corpse was recording their stuff, like they just had fully different equipment. And by then Black Sabbath was like, okay, we like the sound that we already had. We don't want to change it. But no one could have chosen to sound like Cannibal Corpse in 1968 if they wanted to. Like, it just, that sound wasn't possible. And one of the things that is changing is like, let's take like Polyphia. You know Polyphia? Like every American that talks about metal constantly talks about Polyphia. I'm one of the outside people looking in. Tomas, Polyphia, you're familiar?
Oh, yeah.
So Polyphia is an American metal band that is kind of hard to describe, but they're kind of a mix of like metalcore and math rock and like Yngwie Malmsteen shred and like hip hop.
And you forgot one thing. It's also a Gucci advertisement, but
yeah, and the music is driven by sounds that aren't loud. Like, one of the things that exists in a recording studio is you can make things that are normally really quiet sound really loud. Like when you think about drums, like why are drums as big as, you have this giant kick drum and you're putting all of this effort to get like this sound out of it. Like if you could get that sound out of a kick drum, that's like the perfect kick drum sound. But the problem is you can't do this on a stage and have 200 people hear it. So you have to have this big loud equipment, right? What recording studios let us do was take quiet sounds and make them really loud. And so Polyphia's like melodies, their guitar parts they use a lot of like harmonics and like little sounds that, because of the equipment they have, are as loud and as anything else. But basically, if you had a high school gym in the 80s and a real drummer, a real guitarist, some amps, and you tried to play these songs, it would just sound like mud. Like you wouldn't be able to hear anything. The level of tightness and precision that the musicians need for it to work. You need in-ear monitors. You need to be able to hear yourself perfectly, and everything has to come out crystal clear for it to kind of work at all, you know? And I think that's sort of where a lot of the mainstream metal stuff is kind of heading right now is these bands that have sounds that are very precise. And what I like about Moonsorrow's sound and what I also like in the bands that I like is that it's not that, right? Like it's it's a little more distorted, like it's a little fuzzier, it doesn't have to be this perfect precise thing. And in fact, if it was, it would probably have less character and have less of a good sound. But it's a choice that the band is making at this point, and probably consciously. I'm sure people have talked to them about and like we're talking about like sound mixing guys, Tomas. Like I know sound mixing guys who tour with really big acts and do concerts for all sorts of different bands, and they love modern mainstream metal bands because everybody just plugs in and his work's done. Everything is preset perfectly, and that's just the way it's going to be. The other aspect of it is that when you tour, like when I saw Rotting Christ in New York, like they are playing with the sound people that happen to be in New York, and the sound people here don't know their set, and they don't know what's going on, and they have their amp set up, and they don't know the room that they're in, and it's just really easy to get inconsistent, shitty sound. But the trade-off is that it kind of sounds real and it sounds better. And I guess it wouldn't super surprise me if Moonsorrow at some point had a conversation about like, okay, should we try upgrading some of this stuff to be a little bit more modern? But I think it would surprise. I mean, like Henry records music for people, or used to. Trollhorn.
He does.
Yeah. Well, he used to like mix and stuff. Now he just masters. But when he mixed, he was like, I will charge you extra for making the drums sound good, like quantizing them, making sure everything's like perfectly in a grid. He's like, because it's not metal. And I agree with him. So I'd be surprised if he ever agreed to it, but he's also not playing live. Speaking of which, was Henry there?
No.
Yeah.
No. And I thought he might be playing bass, as he has a couple of times in the past, so that Jan is still there and everybody's there. But no, he wasn't. And actually, Mikkel, he went also to Jyväskylä the previous week, and I think Aleksi, you were there too, right?
No, I wasn't. I was in Frankfurt actually that weekend, so I
Oh,
couldn't
really?
go. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well then, so Mikkel was there. And then the next day was Steelfest. And he met Henry there. I mean, they are friends for years. And Henry always goes to Steelfest every year. And they met there, and he was telling... So Mikkel was telling Henry, yeah, and yesterday's concert, they played this and they played that. And Henry was like, oh, really? They played that? So yeah, I wrote him afterwards, and he said that, I heard many good things about the show, so they certainly did something well. But yeah, he learned everything after the fact, as it seems.
Yeah, it seems like Henry has this sort of separation from the live. He can occasionally go do a gig with them, but I think he kind of wants to let the live band be its own thing. And I don't know the feelings of the rest of the band on... I know Henry's feelings on like live sound because he has a blog I've read, and because he has the studio stuff that I've looked into, but I don't know how. I imagine it's similar. I imagine Mitya feels the same way about live sound, but I don't know.
Well, I suppose that more or less the six of them are more or less on the same wavelength in what comes to how Moonsorrow has to sound. Maybe they have minor disagreements, I have no idea. But I think the major areas, they probably all agree, I would suppose.
Mm. Well, what else do you want to talk about?
Now that you're mentioning Henry playing, and well, it's only 5 years ago that he played in Steelfest. just the bass, and he was a bit actually hidden there. He didn't want to have any protagonism. But lately, also with Fintroll, he didn't play earlier this year or late last year. I don't remember. They were touring in Finland, and he didn't play either, which did surprise me because actually in Fintroll they have already played the 7 of them with 2 keyboards on stage. So yeah, maybe I don't know. He's losing interest. I don't know.
He's too busy with Rovio. It's
Yeah, it can be. He has many things to do. Yeah.
he traded the sword and the shield for Angry Birds, so it's
You know that he recorded the last, I think it was Vargraf album.
I
He
did not know
played,
that.
yeah, he played, I believe, bass and or keyboards, I don't remember. And Marco played drums in the whole. So the whole album basically is 3 people. It's
Okay.
the guy who is Vargraf, is pretty much a one-man band,
Mm.
and Marco on drums and Henry on whatever it was, maybe bass or maybe keyboards. So yeah, go listen.
It was nice, Vagrav, when I listened to it.
Yeah, very 90s infused symphonic black metal.
Yeah, but Balsagot is better, so who cares?
Does Moonsorrow have other shows lined up for the summer already?
They do, but they are very few. They have some in Mexico and probably a couple of festivals somewhere in Europe. But I spoke with Marco after the concert, and I mentioned how in Coelho and Järvenjällä, for many years, I don't know if always, but most of the times, in the beginning, in the tum tururum, 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 when playing live, he does a blast beat. Not the whole section, but the second part of the sections, he does a blast beat, which is not there in the studio version. And this time he didn't do it. And I asked him, how come? And he told me that they wanted to play all the songs as close as possible to the original ones. He also told me that usually the versions they play of many of the songs are shortened in a way that is not super noticeable. In some cases, yes. In some cases, maybe the last part is missing or whatever, but maybe they shorten, I don't know, one repetition of a riff or something like this.
And you can always trim the intro and the outro, of course, to gain a few minutes in their
in
case.
their case, yeah, a few minutes. Yeah, but maybe something else in the middle. I don't really know. I would have to listen like side by side, studio and live, and very carefully. I'm not as good at as to pick it just by listening to the live version. Anyway, this time, so they do that to be able to fit it better in shorter sets and so. But this time, because they had all the time in the world, no support band, etc., they wanted to play everything as close as possible to the original versions. And he also told me that it's a bit of a closer in a way, because he's tired already of playing the same songs all the time, and he really wants to start playing new ones. So obviously the conversation continued. Okay, what can you tell me about that? And you're writing, and he said, yeah, that this summer they are planning to write with Henry, and they are quite excited about it. Of course, I have to make this clear. I mean, I'm not only talking among friends, and we have an audience out there, right, of 5-6 people maybe listening to this. I mean, don't trust me. This was not an official interview. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a spokesperson of the band. Whatever I say, take it as somebody talking about them. I mean, I didn't make it up, but you know, it was a conversation with Marco that nothing that I say is an announcement. So if they change their mind tomorrow and they want to wait until September to start writing, then don't tell, but you said to that podcast guy, well, yeah, don't take it like that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Henry a little bit also about like where his headspace is at and what kind of sound he wants for the next album. And I mean, his answer at the time was pretty much, I have no idea. And that like it could be anything. And I think, you know, when I'm thinking about the set list and what they're playing and stuff like that, I'm trying to figure out like what kind of mood they're in or what they, but yeah, to be honest with you, I don't think I have any guesses as to next album. Is it going to be slow? Is it going to be fast? Is it going to be melodic? Is it going to be heavy? Yeah, I kind of don't know, but I think that's also exciting.
Yeah, especially after this long time. I remember when Finland was making Bloodwept, which was released in 2013, if I remember right. Henry was blogging all the time about it, about the songwriting and then about the recording. And he was so excited about making a groovy record, which it is. So there is a lot of that. That was 2013, and they made the next one, I think, in 2020 or maybe 19. And he was also writing a bit about it. And he was in a completely different mood. He said that I don't want to even hear the word groove. And indeed, the next, which is the latest Fintroll album, Vredesvap, is much more black metal, blast beat, atmospheric in a way, or as atmospheric as Fintroll can be. So yeah, I wonder what his mood is going to be now for Moonsorrow.
Yeah.
He can do another. Maybe he will go closer to Sudenudi, for all we know.
Yeah. Well, when's our next chance to all see Moonsorrow together? Next summer?
Hell knows.
Yeah.
Hell knows.
We'll figure it out.
Man, it was such a pity that you didn't come. I was so excited.
I know.
I was telling everybody, yeah, I'm going to Finland and I'm meeting a bunch of friends, even the one from the USA who's flying all the way.
I know. This is a long story, but my job that I have right now in the US, it's a small nonprofit, but it got like a bunch of attention on the internet last year. And so there's been do you know Vice, like Vice News?
Mm-hmm.
They're filming a documentary on the thing, and that weekend was like the event that was supposed to be the end of the documentary, and it's like a debate competition, and I had to prepare kids for it. 2, they needed me there, and 3, it's like the ending of the documentary I'm in. I was like, all right, I should probably be in it.
So really, you are into kids and drugs and Moonsorrow? That's strange.
Kids, drugs, and Moonsorrow.
That's
actually, I got a new tattoo on my chest. I won't show it right now, but it says Kids, Drugs, and Moonsorrow.
That's probably the name of a shitty series on Amazon or stuff. Like,
yeah. It was really the worst timing. It was like the one weekend of the year that I couldn't have gone out to Finland. Also, it turns out that's expensive to do.
Well, yeah. What I meant is that it was very sad, but there was zero blaming my words. I understand.
No, I know. But yeah, I was really disappointed too. But next time. Can you guys imagine if they play a show here and you all come here? Like that would be. No, I want to go to a proper European metal festival.
One thing I wanted to mention, like, so I do have one confirmed like festival where Moonsorrow is playing confirmed. It's in February in Denmark, a festival called Anthem of the Awakened. There's like only there's like 4 bands playing each day, and it's held in like 2 cities. So 4 bands playing one city on one day, and the other 4 playing the other city on the same day, and then they just switch.
I think I saw that poster. I think maybe Mikael posted it on.
Yeah, probably. And actually, if it's only 4 bands, maybe they are going to play full sets, no?
I mean, maybe. I think Moonsorrow is headlining that, so
So we don't
Yeah.
care about the others. That's right.
I mean, I'm gonna like, as much as I'd love to go see Moonsorrow twice, Sir is playing on the other day, like on the different day, so I have to go see Sir.
Mm.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense. If you like the bands the other day, I also would stay.
I mean, it's an insanely good lineup. Like there's Moonsorrow, Naglfar, Arkgoat, Sir, Seth, Lamentari, and Hordom Rife. And then there is, I think they are now teasing with the second headliner that's gonna be from Norway. So we'll see what that's gonna be.
That's a good time of year for me to travel. So maybe I'll see you in Denmark.
Back in February, man.
I would recommend Roskilde. I'm gonna go to the Roskilde one, and it's very beautiful place. Would recommend.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that. Well, Abel, anything else?
I have one last thing to say. I don't know if I already told you. I might have, but I have a very funny trivia about Moonsorrow live. I was in Bordeaux in 2016, and behind us was a guy completely drunk. Did I tell you the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, you did tell
Okay.
this
And
story.
Yanni was happy at you that you took him
Okay,
away.
so if everybody remembers, that's okay. I have a pretty bad memory. I'm like a star. I'm like a goldfish. I'm just...
Well, I was actually thinking about this because Abel like remembers things that we've said really well, and then I realized it's because he goes back to edit these, and everything we say he
Yeah.
has to listen to it 15 times.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
In the future, he's listening to me right now say this sentence.
Yeah. And when I come to this moment, my mind will be go, blah, blah, blah. Where am I? When am I?
Your mind will fold on itself
like a Christopher Nolan movie.
in a fractal stuff, and it will be great, grandiose.
In
Grandiose.
typical Epic Heathen Podcast fashion, we were like, "Oh, well, this will take 30 minutes."
Yeah,
Been
of course.
An hour and a half.
Yeah, an hour. Anyway, and we started to drift away a bit from the concert. So
Yeah, edit it down.
yeah,
It'll be like 6
I may.
minutes of.
So yeah, we had a concert in Jyväskylä and in Helsinki, kind of a period bookending show in a way, even though they will play some festivals. Hopefully soon they will start writing. Well, they have already started, but hopefully they will get to writing more consistently.
Yeah.
They will finish a few songs. They will give us, who knows, maybe next year, although I wouldn't hold my breath. But I hope that by 2025, it's reasonable. I hope to expect a new album. So as a period-ending concert, I think this was a very good one. And I'm really happy. And really, this is not to call myself a superhero or anything. I am myself happy that there is a recording of it, even though I made it in this case, but it doesn't matter because I think it's a great show. Actually, during this week, I listened to it again like a couple of times. It's something that probably won't happen again, or maybe will happen in 10, 15 years that they play this kind of set, this kind of long show.
Yeah.
They haven't done it in the past. I think the previous very special concert was where Mikkel and Aleksi met in 2014. I remember that show very well because I wasn't there, but I remember the announcing and I remember seeing the set list and I remember that evening feeling like, oh, I wish I was there. And this person is there who I'm very jealous of. And
I mean, that show was like an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours long. Like it was a very long show.
Yeah, I know it was. So yeah, that was in 2014. So this was 9 years later, and I think this was definitely longer than that one was. So well,
yeah, I mean, it's really great that you got that video up, and yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think they might never play another show like this, and if they do, that's probably not going to be this summer. It's probably going to
Yeah.
be a long while. And, it sounds like that's their goal. Sounds like they want to write new stuff to play. So it might be a while for them to come back.
And yeah, very good show, very good atmosphere. I was recognized, by the way.
Oh.
Andy from Hungary. Hello, Andy, if you're hearing this.
Oh.
And yeah, it's a very excited fan who, at the end of every song, she was like bringing their arms forward towards Ville, like right beside me, so I couldn't miss it. She was there. And when at some point she got Ville's pick, like he just put it in her hands, she almost collapsed. She started crying. I was looking at her, she looked at me, and she said, "My favorite band." And yeah, she could barely hold herself.
Wow.
And that was at the end of Mimisbrun, so almost the end of the show. And when after Sankaritarina, I took the setlist from the monitor. I wanted to give it to her, but she was gone already. Maybe she couldn't take it anymore or something. I don't know.
It's
But
something we did not, I think, discussed a lot about, but we are for a long time now talking about how Moonsorrow impacts us and how we feel Moonsorrow and how they proceed and conceive stuff. But there is in my opinion, another important part. It's not completely Moonsorrow. You can find it with other bands or movies or art anyway. But it's how it can help people to connect and to make friends and to share a common vision and entertainment. And I had that with other bands, for example, but when you enjoy something and you are with other people enjoying that same stuff, you are clearly having a good time with other human beings, and that's very nice. And I think listening to Moonsorrow live provides you with that full experience of enjoying the stuff you like and enjoying it with other people as well. And even if it's, in my opinion, it's black metal, it's being with other people is just very nice. So if you had a good time meeting new people at the show, that's even better, in my opinion. So I just wanted to address that you have the band, but the band is living also in the people listening to the music live or in parties or stuff like that. But I'm a bit of a poet today.
I was gonna say
Moonsorrow makes friends. I mean, look at us.
Yeah,
the four of us. And Mikkel and Aleksi. I mean, why the hell would I know Thomas from France, from Angoulême? Why the hell would I know Sasan from wherever he is? I don't even remember. Why would I know Alex? I mean, and here we are. And Sasan, how many years have we been knowing each other?
Oh man.
Bartoli Murski for sure, 2007. So that's like 16, 17 years.
Wow.
And I consider you my friend for the last 6, 7, 8, something like this, when we started to talk more often.
Yeah.
Amazing. Moonsorrow makes friends.
Yeah.
I think that's music in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the perfect way to end it.